Hello and welcome to plugin Autopsy for Monospacer. So for those of you who don't know, certain fonts are monospaced and some are not. And if you animate a font that's not monospaced, then the text gets really disgusting really quickly because different characters actually have different widths. So as you can see here, I have a font that's not monospaced, and you can see the lowercase is definitely not as wide as the uppercase. So if we were to animate between a lowercase and an uppercase, then every other character that's to the left or right is then going to shift. So that's the problem that Monospacer aims to solve. As you can see here, text is made up of vertices and handles. So for a character like the capital A, there's no curves, and all we require are vertices to generate the text. If we have a character with curves, we can see that we have vertices and then handles on them as well, Bezier handles. So if anyone's familiar with Bezier curves, that's how this text is made up. So when I ask After Effects for the vertices in the software inside the plugin, it's just going to spit me out an entire array of all these vertices, and it doesn't sort them. It just says, here is your giant chunk of vertices, do something with them. And so the problem is we need to then separate the vertices, try and work out which of these vertices belong to which character. So the method that we currently use is we have a user threshold, X and Y, and basically if this was our first vertice here, any other vertices within X distance from that are then included in this vertice shape. So we say, okay, let's draw a box around this vertice here, and then any vertices inside that are considered part of this A. And you can see here that we have a shape within a shape, so these get included as well. The only problem is if characters are very close together, or if we have characters like a percentage sign, that becomes very tricky, because if this was our starting vertice for the percentage sign, we then need to somehow include all of this, but then none of any other characters. So it becomes pretty important that the characters are spaced far enough away, and I think the percentage sign is generally the most challenging character because it has three different parts that we need to include in it. We've got the two circles and then the slash in the middle, and every font is different. So certain fonts are easy, certain fonts are very difficult. But that's our ghetto way of basically separating the characters. Once we have the characters separated, then what we do is we make sure that each character sits in the middle of a user-defined width. So just say this A here is smaller than the capital A, so if we made every character sit inside a world that was, say, 50 pixels wide, then we just need to make sure that this A is sitting in the middle and not to the side. And then this A here needs to sit in the middle of its world. And so by spacing every world, or making each character's world 50 pixels, that's how we make the font monospaced when it's animating. And so it doesn't matter how wide or fat the character is, it's always going to sit in the middle of this 50 pixel world. So that's why we need to define a character size. And that's how Monospacer works to ensure that your text is monospaced. Obviously this is pointless if you're already working with a font that's monospaced. There is no need for this. If you're working with a monospaced font, you might notice it's a bit weird sometimes. For example, if you've got, say, a 0 and then you've got a 0 here and then you've got a colon, you'll notice that the colon, even though it's a very thin character, takes up the same amount of space as a wide character. And so then it looks kind of strange because you've got a really big gap in between your colons and your zeros. So the zeros are wide, so they look like they're sitting really close together. But then, even though the colon is very narrow, it needs to occupy the same amount of space as the 0. So that's why it can look weird. But the benefit of the monospaced font is that then if these animate, it doesn't matter. They're always going to stay in exactly the same spot and then not be shuffling around based on if these digits move or not. Hopefully Adobe will, we've requested a few times that they implement some feature that essentially allows me to know that all these vertices belong to A and I don't have to do all this ghetto box drawing and boundary drawing. The After Effects scripting API can separate characters into individual vertices, but that can't be done efficiently every frame because the text can change every frame. So that's why we have to go with this ghetto solution. So hoping Adobe will hear our cries for help and throw us a bone. So that's Monospacer, and we hope to create these plugin autopsy videos for most of the new plugins that we create, essentially defining the problem and how we solve them. If you have any other requests or video ideas, let us know. We're trying to make more content more regularly. So thank you for watching, and please buy Monospacer.